The most popular piece of gym equipment for lower body in a commercial gym is the leg press. By far, if you go to any commercial gym, people will be using leg presses. Oftentimes, there'll actually be more leg presses than there are squat racks. The reason is you can load up a ton of freaking weight, look really cool for the girls that are over on the dumbbell aisle. And you do get lower body fatigue. I like a leg press. I think they're really great. Now, companies are starting to take a leg press and make them more for home gyms, and that's really what this is. They call these compact leg presses. The question is, do they actually replace a leg press? Are they actually compact? I mean, they look kind of compact, but when it actually comes down to it, are they actually saving that much space? And are they better or superior for home gyms to a leg press? Let's talk about them. This one specifically is the Body Solid Compact Leg Press. Hey guys, it's Coop from Garage Gym Reviews. Today we're in our above ground basement gym. Kind of cool, huh? I can't be in an actual basement. I have to look like a basement, but not an actual basement. But today we're reviewing the compact leg press, specifically from Body Solid. Now, Body Solid did not invent this design. There are many other companies that have these too. I'm gonna talk about some of them, just a few off the top. PowerTech has one, Titan Fitness has one, Force USA has one that actually has a hack squat adapter. There's also a company called Sidey that makes a really cheap one on Amazon. Gronk has one, and Body Solid. There's probably other companies too. This is like a very popular design for companies that are making machines for home gyms, and it makes sense. Now, they call these leg presses. Now, just from the get, I think it's a poor name. The reason they call them leg presses is because they're taking the most popular keyword for commercial gym machine and applying it to a piece of gym equipment made for home. It does some things that are similar to a leg press, but honestly, when you look at it and consider the design, it's actually more like a hack squat. And honestly, I think neither of those names really work because it's actually kind of a third category, and that's what PowerTech calls it. They call it a leg sled. So I actually think it's a better name, leg sled. Don't think of it exactly like a leg press, even though they call it a compact leg press, although I think you could replace it. I'm getting into semantics here, but the reality is it's a little bit different than a leg press. Part of that is because of the way that you actually use it. So I'll just show you the way that you use it. Think about a leg press. Typically, you would actually be down here laying, and then your sled would be up here. The carriage would move, but you wouldn't be on the carriage. A hack squat would actually be in this way, but the difference is you'd be laying flat, you would have yoke pads and be using it that way. So the way that you do this, you get your stance however you'd like. This back pad is adjustable. You then off lift. There is a lever. The lever you don't actually have to use or touch when you're lifting off. There's positives and negatives to that. I'll talk about the negatives here in a moment, but you just lift off, it unlocks, and then you can squat. You can use these handles to kind of secure against, also to kind of like offload the weight. Honestly, if you pull on those too hard, especially out of the hole, I mean, you can just give a little bit extra give if you're just needing some extra help to get out. And then you can just do a standard leg press. Now, one thing about the mechanism, when you use it, when you lift off, it unlocks automatically. It's this handle right here, so you have to do that. It's nice in use. One thing to think through though, because a lot of you are parents like me, I would not leave weight on this, and I also wouldn't leave it in the up position. Maybe your kids don't get on your gym equipment like mine do, but they're a bunch of Banshees. I'm sure you have Banshees too. Once Banshees get on the equipment, you never know what's gonna happen. So in my household, if I was going to use this, I would bring it all the way to the bottom and just leave it there all the time, which is a little bit annoying because you would like to leave the weight on there. I just think it's a little bit of a safety hazard to not have to manipulate the actual handle to release it. If you think of a typical leg press, oftentimes there's two different handles. You have to unlock them. You don't just lift it up and it undoes. So has a benefit to the fact that you don't have to use your hand when you're using it. Has a negative to, well, if somebody gets on it that doesn't know what they're doing, it could be a little bit unsafe. Here's what would happen if you basically pulled up. You don't want that to happen. Maybe you do. Maybe it's like a trap, you know, bear trap. I'll talk about the depth and everything like that, as well as the options. But first, I want to talk about just the overall design and build quality. Okay, this does have a 1,000-pound weight capacity. That includes the user that's on it. So if you weigh 200 pounds, that's 800 pounds max weight. When you compare that to many other companies, that's actually more than a lot of other companies have for the compact leg press. For some of you that will matter, some won't. I say some of you that will matter. Part of that is because this is somewhat of a plate eater. It doesn't take quite as many plates as something like a Cybex squat press. Rest in peace. But it does take quite a bit of plates if you want a heavy stimulus. It's not like some of you that go into a commercial gym and you see like these guys just absolutely loaded up with a ton of weight. If you're actually controlling the weight, going to full depth, everything like that, you're gonna be fine. But for some of you, the compactness of the machine, also with the fact that you do have to have quite a bit of weight due to the angle of the machine, does add up to maybe problems for some budget home gym owners that have maybe wider plates. So if you're somebody that all you have is say high temp plates, you have 12 inches of weight horns on either side. So you may very quickly run up against having a max amount of weight. Most of you that are buying this probably don't have calibrated weight plates. So you're not gonna be able to stack just tons of 45s on there. But I think if you have a standard size weight plate, like a strength co plate, you'll probably be fine. Now, the 12-inch weight posts have a positive and a negative side. The big positive is this is designed to be compact. They include it in the name. It's really made for a home gym. This is not better than a typical leg press. Like if you have the space, just get a typical leg press. Nobody's really saying like this is superior design to a typical leg press. The reason that they sell these and market them is because they're more compact and therefore better for a home gym. There's a reason you don't find these pretty much at all in a typical commercial gym. Now there are really high-end leg presses that can also do something similar as this. An example is the Atlantis Hack Squat Pro. It does a hack squat, but then has a pad that pops out and then does something somewhat similar to this. So it is like a viable movement. It's just, if you're wanting one machine and that one machine is a leg press and you have the space and money for it, then there are better options, I think, than the compact leg press. But for most of you, that's not a reality. So this can actually work. Just understand when it says compact, you have to understand it's 47 inches or so wide, and you do have to leave some space on the side to put some plates on, just like you do a barbell. So it is more compact than a typical leg press, but width-wise, it won't be like crazy more compact than a typical width of a leg press. But you also have the length to consider. It is a little bit shorter than most leg presses that are out there, so you're saving space there too. Now, of the compact leg presses that are available, some of them I've talked about, I will say the Sled on this is one of the smoothest sleds. Part of that, and this is kind of body solid at large, when I see their stuff online, it's not very impressive. Part of that is because they're still stuck in the 90s with some of their marketing, but they're actually pretty good quality. So total weight for this is over 225 pounds, which means it's pretty solid. They're using a lot of 11 gauge steel. But one reason that this is able to be so smooth is because they're using actual linear bearings on guide rods, very similar to what you'd find with a Smith machine. It's one reason that it sounds the same. Here, you can listen to it. So it's the same sound that you'd hear from a typical Smith machine, which is a positive. It's one reason they have a higher weight capacity, because they're using sealed ball bearings. So it's something that's going to be smooth and last a long time, especially if you oil the guide rods. Many of the cheaper ones that are competitors to them, one of those is Titan Fitness. They're using guide rods, but they're using rollers on top of the guide rods. It won't be quite as smooth, won't have the noise that this one does, but I think they also just aren't able to hold as much weight. For instance, the Titan only holds 700 pounds. So if you're wanting just something that's very smooth, has a lot of weight, this is one of the better options. Now, one thing that really matters on leg presses and just general leg machines is the depth that you can get. Especially today, stretch is talked about more often, getting to full depth. And if you're using something like this in your home gym, like, you really should be using it not as a way to just stack as much plate as possible, but as to get the most fatigue. And so if you're going for the most fatigue, the best way to use this is to get as deep as possible. So let me show you. One thing about this that this does have is an adjustable back pad. If you use the back pad all the way back, you have to get to more depth. So if I use it right there and I go down, you'll see like I'm not hitting depth at all. Like I could go so much deeper. So in order to hit proper depth, you really want to adjust the back pad up further. The problem with that for some people is you're not going to have the dorsiflexion on your ankles to be able to get that deep. So for me, if I go really heavy, this is pretty good depth. I would prefer more, But just understand, if you want to use this and get as much depth as possible, you're going to have the Backpad all the way up, and you're still may not be able to get to exactly the depth that you'd like. But if you're somebody that doesn't go to full depth, like actually like truly ass the grass type stuff, it may not matter for you. But while I'm talking about it, I do think that Body Solid, they do have some room. Obviously, one thing they're limited on is the 45-pound plate, how close it is to the ground. You can see there is room underneath it. I wish they would just allow it so it basically went all the way to the floor. That'd be nice. Then you can get greater depth. Now the vinyl and padding on this is just okay. When you compare it to many other companies that they compete with, say Rep Fitness, Rogue, Titan Fitness, the vinyl it leaves a lot to be desired. It's not thin, but it's also not super grippy. It's not an actual leather. It's a pleather. I love pleather. Nobody's ever said that. But a grippy vinyl on this would actually be nice. So if they're looking for a way to upgrade this, that's a way that I could see to upgrade. But the biggest upgrade, and I think the biggest miss on this machine, it's a huge miss, it really is the foot plate. The foot plate is problematic for multiple reasons. Number one is it's not wide enough. This should have a wider foot plate. The reason it should have a wider foot plate is one, because people would want to take a wider stance. But second is because you've got the space to work with. Why not add a wider foot plate? One thing about this is it's a compact leg press. The reality is though, you have as much room as basically the plate posts are going to take up. Because that width is there, nobody's going to put a piece of machinery right here. You know, like nothing's going to sit right here because it's going to run into this. That's just not how you build your gym out. Because of that, you have more room for your foot plate. Make the foot plate wider. Please, you need to make this foot plate wider. There's a lot of people that would like to squat wider, and there's no way to do that on this because of this. But the bigger miss is the fact that this is a fixed foot plate, no adjustability. They should, like, quickly, you need to come out with a version 2 that has an adjustable foot plate. The adjustable back pad is nice, but an adjustable foot plate, you see this on nearly every high-end hack squat, leg press. You see this on other competitor compact leg presses or leg sleds, having an adjustable foot plate. This one needs one too. This is the biggest miss, by far. It needs one. So, Body Solid, if you're watching this, get back to the drawing board quickly. Add an adjustable foot plate, please. Now, one movement I want to speak to on this is actually my favorite movement of all, and that is calf raise. Calf raises on this machine, like this is vastly better than a typical seated calf raise. The reason being, you're able to not just focus on the soleus, you also get the gastroc. The gastroc runs around the knee. Because it runs around the knee, having a straight leg really matters for working on the gastroc. So honestly, if I could have one piece of machinery for calf raises, it would be this. I prefer this versus a seated. You're actually seeing that in a lot of the literature now, where basically everybody is recommending, instead of using a seated calf raise, if you want to get the maximum, do like a fully extended knee. But it's actually, I think, superior to something like a Smith machine or standing calf raise because you're also not loading the spine. So basically it's the best of both worlds. I think there's a lot of people where this would actually be a better option for calf raises versus just getting a seated calf or like a donkey calf. Something like this works very well. If you want a machine that does multiple movements, this is one that does it. The leg press is actually worse than the calf raise. But one thing that makes the calf raise nice that I'm glad they thought through is it actually has this angled diamond foot plate. Diamond foot plate's nice for basically having grip. I wish it was textured. The powder coat is like a slick powder coat. It should be textured, especially for your feet. Think of like the Rogue Rhino, just has a little bit extra grip. But this angle is nice when you're basically doing your calf. Now, overall, I've been pretty impressed with the quality of Body Solid, but I will say this thing leaves a lot to be desired on terms of the ergonomics and just compared to some of the competitors out there. To speak to some of the competitors, if you're in the market for like a compact leg sled, compact leg press like this, you have PowerTech, you have Force USA, you have Titan Fitness, you have Sidey, and there's probably others out there too, but those are the ones I would really look at. This is not the best one in my opinion. I think the best one in this category right now is probably PowerTech. They have an adjustable back pad, adjustable foot plate. They've actually widened the foot plate too, has very similar features as this, very similar weight capacity. Like just, it's basically what you'd want for a similar price. This is actually slightly under $1,000. If you really want one of these, I think you can get a very similar use case getting something like the Titan. The difference is it's not going to have quite as much of weight capacity as 700-pound weight capacity, but it's like $500. You can get it for around there. I think that makes a lot more sense. Now, I will say, If Body Solid goes back to the drawing board and adds an adjustable foot plate as well as widens this, and it would be nice, they have the room, make it a little bit deeper, give a little bit more depth. This thing could actually be really good if they keep it at a similar price. Just right now, compared to the options that are out there, in my opinion, this is not one that I'd probably recommend when there's so many others that I think are better. One I want to try is actually the Force USA. If you look at it, they have a similar like functionality, does have an adjustable foot plate, is a good price, but it also has an attachment for a hack squat. So basically yoke pads that you can add in here if you want to use it like that. So that one looks pretty cool. Now there is a reaction for people that will see this review and be like, Coop, I have it and I love it. If you love it, who cares what I think? It's gonna work just fine for you. I'm not saying it's a bad option. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just comparing this. My job is to compare these, give honest reviews that are in-depth comparison to everybody else. My honest take is that there are better options out there. But if this is the one you already have, or you like something about it, like say the smoothness, and that really matters to you, then this one just works just fine. I will say, the likelihood of them improving this over time is probably pretty high. A lot of times when we do these reviews and we give feedback that actually matters and people want to know about, you'll see it come out. And my job, I want to like push the industry forward and give you like honest reviews. So this is the way that I do it. Let me know in the comments if you've ever used the compact leg press, have used any of those others, or this one in particular. I'd love to hear your experience versus a typical leg press. And are there any other machines that you'd like to see us review? Let me know in the comments. This has been from Garage Gym Reviews. I'll see you next time. Peace.